This is History for Cocktail Parties with hack historians Thornton Kennedy and James Ottley.
Welcome to History for Cocktail Parties. My name is Thornton Kennedy.
And I'm James Ottley.
And James, today we're going to discuss Orville and Wilbur Wright's quest to take to the skies like birds.
Indeed.
It is a fascinating story how these two Midwesterners were chasing this dream, this thing that humanity had been thinking about since the dawn of time.
Right.
And no engineering background, no fancy college degrees.
Yeah.
And these two guys decide that they're going to build first a glider and then an airplane.
A flying machine.
And what fascinated me was, why on earth did these two guys from Dayton, Ohio, first test this plane out in Kitty Hawk, North Carolina, on the Outer Banks?
Of all the places.
And I guess I should say Kill Devil Hills, which is about 4 miles away from Kitty Hawk.
I think that's right, but close enough.
They had a successful bicycle shop, and this was when the bicycle was sweeping America by storm.
The great bicycle craze of the 1890s.
Right. And they were not just a dealership. They made bikes.
Yeah.
And they were very successful. But my point is, they did not have the same bank accounts as some of the people they were competing against.
That's exactly right.
Some of these people had government contracts.
Exactly.
And one guy spent $100,000 in 1890s money just to fly a ship off the side of a building and crash into the ground.
It's a lot of money.
This leads to a few cocktail party worthy stories, including how an infamous serial killer played a critical role in aviation history. Our signature cocktail could only be one thing, the aviation. It has this unique blue tint to it, and I would describe it kind of like a gimlet. It's just a lot of gin, lemon juice, Marciano liquor, if I'm saying that correctly, creme de violette, which gives it that color, garnished with a cherry.
And unlike your last one, it does not go down like jet fuel.
It does not. It is actually a tasty drink, but there's the only mixer in there is a little bit of lemon juice.
Yeah.
The rest of it's all liquor.
Yeah, but it's very smooth. And as we enjoy a sip of this awesome aviation cocktail, it gives me an opportunity to acknowledge one of our partners, HB Wealth. This episode of History for Cocktail Parties is brought to you in part by HB Wealth. As one of the country's largest fee-only registered investment advisors, HB Wealth provides wealth advisory, investment management, and family office services to over 4,700 clients. With a mission of bringing unwavering financial peace of mind to the clients they are privileged to serve, HB Wealth delivers comprehensive advice and concierge-level care through a fee-only fiduciary approach. Investing includes the risk of loss, and past investment performance is not a guarantee of future results. Learn more at hbwealth.com. That's hbwealth.com.
And let's get into the story of Wilbur and Orville Wright and Kitty Hawk, North Carolina.
I'm ready.
Now, you know this, but I didn't, and that is the coin toss.
Yeah.
Determined who was going to be the first one to go up in this flying machine.
Yeah.
This is December 1903. They had spent the previous 3 years there or nearby that Kill Devil Hills that I said, testing these gliders.
Yeah.
Usually from summer into fall. And the flyer had evolved from pure trial and error, including having to essentially reset all the data on human flight, which proved inaccurate and inefficient.
Literally, the accepted math and the physics, all the equations about lift and everything were wrong.
Yeah.
And they went back, built a wind turbine, you might get into that, at their bike shop and figured it out. That plus these experiments here.
Their first flyers flew well, and then they incorporated all of the known data and it crashed.
Yeah.
And they couldn't figure out what had changed except that nobody had any idea how to build a wing.
Right.
Essentially. Right. In 1903, it's a biplane design, that sort of iconic look.
Right.
It's got these 2 8-foot propellers, and they're push propellers, right?
That's right. They're on the back. Right.
And so they push the machine forward rather than what we think of today, which is on the front of the plane.
Just like it sounds.
And it has a 180-pound, 12-horsepower engine.
Yeah.
That would turn these propellers.
That's like a lawnmower, isn't it?
I guess.
Yeah.
I have no idea. Wilbur Wright reached out to all of these engine manufacturers seeking some kind of engine that would work in this machine, and he got nothing back. There was basically either no response or we don't have anything that fits that bill. So they turned to their mechanic in the bicycle shop, this guy named Charlie Taylor.
A guy that works on bicycles.
He's never built an engine.
Yeah.
Charlie Taylor is the one who builds this engine that propels the first airplane essentially into the sky.
Yeah.
It is
talking about a can-do spirit.
So they use the spruce for the straight parts of the airframe, ash for the curved pieces, those winged ribs.
And those wooden ribs or cross ribs, interestingly, the design was based on a bridge building design. It was a modified Pratt truss bridge building design, which at the time when Pratt came up with it for the bridges was a breakthrough design, a lot stronger, and it's actually still used today in buildings like the San Francisco airport and big box stores. When you look up, you know, like in Costco and whatnot.
Got those cross.
That's right. That's what was in the Wright Brothers wings, modified Pratt truss.
That's crazy.
Isn't that wild? It's kind of cool.
And their hero, Octave Chanute, the guy who they reach out to, is a bridge builder.
No kidding.
And he also designed gliders.
I did not know that.
And so their early glider designs are based on a engineer who built bridges.
Right.
And I'm sure that's where that design came from.
Yeah.
Now, these wings had a 1 in 20 camber, which is the curve
of
the wing. It's like basically a 5% slope.
I think that's right.
So there is a slope to it.
That's right. It's not flat. It's not like a playing card.
No.
And that's very important. We'll come back to that.
Hugely important.
Yep.
The wingspan is 40 feet by 4 inches. Importantly, and you're going to get into this because this is really their innovation, they had a system to control the wings, which is called wing warping. Put that in the back of your mind because we're going to get back to wing warping. Wing area was 510 square feet. Cotton muslin covered the wings. And this was a material used in women's underwear. Is that right?
I think that's right. Yeah, and it's basically, and I don't know if it's muslin or muslin. It was this versatile, lightweight cotton fabric, and it's believed that it got its name as a kind of a derivation of Mosul, Iraq.
What?
Muslin, Mosul.
That's awesome.
Isn't that cool? Yeah, and the reason was Mosul was a trading hub, and that's where Europeans first encountered this type of textile.
That's wild.
Yeah, just a little derivation of the name there.
And I guess it'd be a little bit sturdier, and it would hold wind a little bit more, I assume.
Yeah, right?
I haven't, I'm not going to go into women's underwear. The Flyer had a double elevator in front, which were these movable horizontal surfaces which controlled the plane's pitch, its nose, up or down orientation. And when you see those early pictures of the Flyers, it does have that weird configuration
on the front.
On the front, like 2 smaller wings.
Right.
Also had rear double rudders, another of Wright's discoveries, which allowed the pilot more control.
Again, not the gliders, but the final airplane.
You said this, but their earlier inventions were gliders.
Mm-hmm.
And so these were things that they flew like kites, right? But they could put a person in them.
Right.
And the person would lay down flat on their stomach and sort of control things, but there was no motor, no engine. You were just essentially gliding.
Exactly. And it's kind of interesting. You talked about how they lay prone. The first model had a little trap door that as you were coming into land, you'd open that door and they'd stick their feet out and land it on their feet. And then they decided, well, they didn't necessarily need to do that. That it was safe to land it, just
on its belly or on its skids.
Your belly. Right.
They did have like little skids.
Exactly.
It's like a Fred Flintstone.
100%. I thought about that too.
Did they take off that way? Did they like run with it and then jump up in it? Or
well, that's how a lot of hang gliders. That's how hang gliders.
Well, I think
maybe they did.
In reading this book, which is David McCullough's The Wright Brothers.
Yeah.
They had 2 guys on either side that would kind of run.
Got it.
And take off with them.
Have you ever gone up to Lookout Mountain and done that hang glider experience?
No. Have you?
It's pretty amazing. It's pretty cool. They take you up, not to whole aside here, but you actually get to hang glide off this little hill, and it had to be the same feeling that the Wright brothers had the first time you took flight. It was amazing. And then they took you up, pulling you behind a
glider?
Well, one of those ultralights.
The ultralights.
Yeah.
Wow.
Very, very scary.
That is horrifying. How long are you in the air?
About 30 minutes, and you're gliding down. But the scariest part is when they release you from the
Just feel that instant.
It's terrifying.
Yeah. No thanks.
Yep.
Not going to do it. The 1903 Wright Flyer was steered by moving a hip cradle in the direction that the pilot wanted to fly. The cradle pulled the wires to warp the wings and simultaneously turn the rudders.
Right, which is something that Wilbur, on the first gliders, and I mentioned this earlier, he incorrectly believed that a tail and a movable rudder was not necessary. And so with some of the experiments, he realized, oh my God, we need a tail. And I'll go into more detail on that either in this episode or maybe even episode 2.
Perfect. And I will add here that we're going to get into Otto Lilienthal, who was one of the early pioneer flyers, and he flew like you did. It was a biplane type of structure, but he would just hang underneath it.
Yeah.
And the way he controlled it was just by swinging and torquing his body left, right, and center.
That's kind of how you do it in a hang glider, and push the bar front and back.
It did not work out well for Otto.
Yep.
Now, with the gliders, without the engine, it flew like a kite. I said that 2 men could run with it and allow the wind to catch it. But this thing, the Wright Flyer in 1903, weighed more than 600 pounds unoccupied.
That's crazy.
I know. I don't think of that as being terrifically heavy compared to today's planes.
Yeah.
But back then, a spruce and fabric machine with an engine in it, 600 pounds, it sounds pretty heavy.
I'm just comparing that to a hang glider, modern day hang glider, which is not 600
pounds. It couldn't possibly be 600 pounds because you can pick that thing up.
Absolutely.
Wow. So they needed some kind of a launching device. They couldn't just have 2 men stand up and run it into the winds. And they dubbed this thing the Grand Junction Railroad. It was a 600-foot launching rail made of 2x4s laid end to end. To take off, the plane rode down this track on a small wheeled dolly or truck, as the Wrights called it. So everything's ready to go to attempt to fly this thing, except who was going to be the pilot. The Wrights insisted on everything being equal, which I think is one of the great pieces of their story.
Yeah, absolutely.
Is that early on, Wilbur would refer to me and my, but around 1899, all of his writing changes to us and we.
It's very cool.
He really incorporates Orville into everything that he's doing, even though it is undeniable that Wilbur is the driving force of all of this. And as fate would have it, who wins the toss? Wilbur Wright.
And do you think it was a fair coin toss? I mean, if you're going to be the first, I know you said you wouldn't want to sign up for it, but if you're going to be the first man to fly, you think it was a, hey, Orville, heads I win, tails you lose kind of thing? I mean, kind of like you've heard the joke about Neil Armstrong tricking Buzz Aldrin, hey, will you get me a sip of orange Tang drink, and as he does that, Neil steps out onto the moon and is the first man to step on the moon. You think it was something like that?
It's got to be, man.
Yeah.
I think it's really funny. But I mean, as the universe works, Wilbur takes controls of the plane, goes down the launching machine, plane leaves the rail, Wilbur pulled up too sharply and stalls and comes crashing down after just 105 feet. He was in the air all of 3.5 seconds.
Yeah. That that was that date. That was December 14th, right?
Yeah.
And that day was 121 years to the day from when the Montgolfier brothers in France flew the first hot air balloon.
Really?
Yeah, it's kind of cool.
That is a weird coincidence.
Yeah.
And I wonder if Wilbur Wright was aware of that.
I don't know.
Probably.
I don't know.
Knowing the way that they prepared for these things, he was so meticulous about weather and all of these. Like, was it correct? Was it perfect?
Right.
So probably not, but that's an interesting factor.
And another kind of interesting thing, at Kill Devil Hills, they have it mapped out and you can walk, and they've got a little marker like, this is the terminus of the first flight. This is the terminus of the second flight. This is the terminus.
Wow.
Yeah.
So you can see the December 14th, and then we're going to get to the December 17th.
Right. And the first flight was shorter than the length of a C-5 airplane fuselage.
Of course.
Isn't that funny?
It is funny. You think about what it begat.
Exactly.
So it took them 3 days to fix the flyer after Wilbur crashed it.
Yeah.
So they're ready again on December 17th. The wind is averaging more than 20 miles per hour. Brothers lay the launching rail pointed into the wind, level ground near their camp. This time, instead of the inclined launch, the wind provided the necessary airspeed for takeoff. And because Wilbur had already had the first chance, Orville took his turn at the controls. And this is it, December 17th, 1903. He flies into the air, captured in this iconic photograph, lasts 12 seconds and covered a total distance, as you said, of 120 feet, going at just under 7 miles per hour.
Yeah. And I think it's awesome, as you said, I want to kind of hit on this point again, that it is the Wright brothers that were first in flight. It's not one claim to be, even the one won the coin toss. It's not Orville saying, "Hey, I'm the first in flight."
Yeah,
it's that they shared the glory.
100%. Yep. And I think that's just a very interesting take on how they saw their roles in all this.
That's right.
So they do 3 more flights, and they take turns, exactly to what you were saying. The second and third flights are 175 and 200 feet in 12 and 15 seconds, respectively. The fourth flight, the last flight by Wilbur, took 59 seconds and covered 852 feet.
Yeah, and that's marked out.
That's got to be pretty damn exciting.
That's cool.
But On that fourth flight, the landing broke the front elevator supports. So the Wrights hoped to make repairs for they're going to try for a 4-mile flight. Because I told you Kill Devil Hills is about 4 miles from Kitty Hawk. So they were going to fly to Kitty Hawk. And can you imagine what if you've been a citizen of Kitty Hawk and all of a sudden here comes this 7-mile-per-hour airplane flying overhead? It would have been surreal. But moments later, as they're standing on the ground, huge gust of wind picks the flyer up in the air, tumbles it end over end, and damages it beyond any hope of repair. Never flown again.
Is that right?
And this is the original Wright Flyer, which is in the National Air and Space Museum in D.C., part of the Smithsonian.
But only, I got to add in here, but only after a squabble with the Smithsonian was resolved over who was actually the first in flight. This Flyer 1 that you're talking about was actually on display at the London Science Museum until 1948. And there's an agreement with the Smithsonian that prohibits them from publishing or displaying any signage or anything like that that indicates that someone other than the Wright brothers were the first in flight. And there's also a provision in this legal agreement that the Flyer 1 can be reclaimed by the heirs of the Wright brothers if this is violated.
That's awesome.
Or a family member. And the deal was that this guy, S.P. Langley, who was the secretary of the Smithsonian until 1906, he had actually tried to fly, had unsuccessful attempts in his aerodrome.
Samuel Pierpont Langley.
So he tried to fly in this, make this aerodrome aircraft, 1896, and the Smithsonian was trying to take care of its own, saying that he was the first in flight. And this thing did fly. The aerodrome did fly later. 1914, well after the Wright brothers.
Interesting.
But only after substantial modifications were made to it. So it did not fly in its original. So there's no way they could say that he was the first one to fly. But isn't that interesting that the Flyer 1, when they had to resolve this legal dispute?
And it also goes back to something I said earlier, which is that Langley had a government contract for $70,000 to build a working aircraft.
He's the one.
Now, James, I've flown a lot in my life. And to this day, when I get into an airplane, I lock in, fasten my seatbelt, and just shut my brain off for 2 hours or 4 hours or however long, because I have still no earthly idea how a machine that is that large gets up into the sky.
It's the age-old question. I mean, we've all driven under a huge commercial jetliner, coming in for a landing. We've seen it just floating up there and wondered how this 200-ton piece of metal stays up there in the sky. It doesn't just fall out of the sky.
It's amazing.
It is, indeed. And, the funny thing is, to this day, no one really knows. I'm kidding, of course. Somebody
no one
knows.
has any idea
knows.
how that thing works.
But the answer is
just
so
a
simple.
hope and a prayer.
That's right. But it doesn't look like it should fly. But the answer is so simple that it's terrifying, really. I mean, it's almost something you don't want to know. An airplane flies because its wings create lower pressure above the wing, a pocket of lower pressure above the wing, and higher pressure below the wing. And that's it. And so the wing shape and the angle make the air move faster over the top. And this faster air on top, it's moving on top, creates less air pressure
that's why that
top.
little 5% slope is so important.
That's right. And if you look out, if you're in the plane and you look out and you see that the wing is curved, just like you talk about, or cambered. And it's this higher air pressure, quite simply, underneath the wing that literally pushes the wing upward and creates that lift. So because of the angle and the shape of the wing, the air that's faster over the top of the wing, that creates, as I said, a pocket of air pressure. So the higher pressure underneath pushes the wing and the airplane up.
Wow, that's insane. So why is the air over the top of the wing going faster? Explain that to me.
Well, I can explain that.
Well, wait, keep in mind, this is one English major explaining to another English major the principles of fluid dynamics.
That's true. So let me put it like this. Let me give you an example. Let's say you and I would decide to get up off the sofa and walk up to the liquor store to buy a bottle of scotch.
I can completely relate to that. I think, in fact, that has happened to us.
Yeah. So follow me here. So let's say we're going to take separate but parallel roads to get there. And you want to get there to the liquor store at the same exact time as I do to make sure I don't buy the cheap scotch. Okay?
Absolutely.
All right. But your route, let's say, has a steep hill that you've got to walk up and over.
Sure.
And my route parallel is completely flat. So, you're out there, got your walking sticks and your orthotic shoes and your terry cloth headband, and you're going to have to walk a whole lot faster, right?
Yeah.
To the liquor store
at the same time,
if we're going to get there to get up and over that hill. So in this example, you're the air going over the top of the cambered or curved wing, the hill, and I'm the air going under the wing, the flat surface. So we both get to the back of the wing, the liquor store, at the same time, but you've got to go a lot faster. And when you go a lot faster, that creates a pocket of lesser air pressure above the wing. And so the air under the wing, which has the higher pressure, literally lifts the wing and the airplane attached to it up in the air. So
just like going to the liquor store.
Exactly, indeed. So these same principles explain how wing warping, which you touched on before, works to bank or roll the airplane left or right, and how Wilbur discovered that an airplane needs a tail and a movable rudder. But I'll save that for episode 2.
But it does get into why the Wright brothers were so ahead of the curve and what they were doing in terms of control.
Absolutely. And I think we should go back to that and really make the point that the 3-axis control, as you talked about, vertical, horizontal, banking, and you mentioned that earlier because it's really, really a significant point. I mean,
some of the leading aviators of the time made the point that the Wright brothers' ability to control the plane is what really set them apart. Everybody could pretty much get up into the air, but nobody had the ability to stabilize.
Right. I mean, that was truly the breakthrough invention, this 3-axis control system, the system of aircraft controls that made fixed wing powered flight possible. And it remains today the standard on airplanes of all kinds.
That's incredible.
And I mean, to prove the point, their first U.S. patent, which was in March in 1903, before that first flight you talked about, it did not claim to be the invention of a flying machine.
Sure.
The patent was for a system of aerodynamic control that manipulated a flying machine's surfaces.
Wow.
And basically what the Wright brothers did is they developed a reliable method of pilot control, which they quite correctly believed was the key to solving the, quote, flying problem.
The flying problem. I love that.
I do too. I love that term.
All of those guys, the flying
problem. Yes. And so this approach, in other words, focusing on control, differed significantly from other experimenters at the time who put more emphasis on developing powerful engines. Yeah, exactly. Nobody else was focusing on control. And these, more experienced practitioners were focusing on engines. They were all trying to build more powerful engines, attaching them to airframes that were equipped with untested control devices and expecting them to fly and take off into the air, and didn't work out well for some of them, you know. And I kind of chuckle at this because isn't this the typical dude approach? Like just
100%.
Tim the tool man, just add more power.
Just put a bigger engine on it.
Exactly.
There was this famous aviator in France who was around the same time that Wilbur and Orville were unveiling their Flyer 3.
Yeah.
And he just had a motorcycle and just put wings on the side and just would get that motorcycle up as fast as he possibly could.
Exactly. And I think, it's worth saying that this is yet another example of why women live longer than men.
100%. 100%.
So this focus on control, interestingly, grew out of their original vocation, which you touched on was a bicycle shop.
Yeah, they had opened a bicycle shop in Dayton, Ohio.
That's right.
That's very successful business.
Before they changed the world with airplanes, they were building bicycles.
Right.
And it was the profits from this bicycle shop that funded their aviation experiments. And being savvy entrepreneurs, they capitalized on this bicycle craze, which you hit on, 1890s. And this was spurred by the invention of the safety bicycle. I love this term, too. The safety bicycle is the type of bicycle we ride today.
So it doesn't have the big-ass wheel in the front, the small wheel. Okay.
You know what the name of that type of bicycle was? The big wheel?
Yeah.
Well, it was the penny farthing.
Oh, wow.
Big penny. A penny, I guess, was bigger than a farthing.
So, right.
Yeah. And so that was the name of that. And of course, man, you build, what? That's a pretty amazing invention, too. You mean we don't have to kill ourselves just getting on the bicycle?
Climb 12 feet up into the air and try to ride this thing?
Right.
The safety bicycle.
Safety bicycle. And so it was working with these bicycles, in particular, that influenced their belief that if you talk about unstable flying machines, that they could be controlled by
Right,
balance with practice.
There had to be an equilibrium.
That's right. And it's funny, a lot of the other folks that were experimenting with aviation were also interested and dedicated cyclists.
That's
kind of interesting. Yeah. Which kind of makes sense, balance. So again, at the outset, the very beginning of their experiments, they regarded control as the unsolved third part of, quote, as we said, the flying problem. And they said the other two, wings and engines, they believed those were already sufficiently promising.
Yeah,
but it was control,
Sure.
And it's kind of funny, other aeronautical experimenters thought that flying was basically the same as surface locomotion, except that the surface was elevated. They thought that, hey, we just need a ship's rudder for steering, and the flying machine will just remain essentially level in the air. And that's obviously not the case, So the idea of deliberately rolling or leaning to one side, it seemed weird and undesirable because the conventional thinking was, you're going to be level in the air. There's no need for that. That doesn't make any sense. So it's kind of interesting. I think you touched on this, but they drew on the works of these pioneers of like George Cayley. You mentioned Chanute, Lilienthal, but even Leonardo da Vinci. Another very important influence for him was birds.
Hugely.
Literally.
Hugely.
Just looking up at the sky and watching birds fly like folks have done for ages, And,
and just seeing how they changed their wings and changed the angles and whatnot. And that was something that others had written about. So Wilbur just dove in deep on other people's research on how bird wings flew.
And looked
bird
up.
wings worked.
And looked up in the sky. And he saw that they changed the angle, like you said, angle of their wings, birds do, to make their bodies roll left or right. And he figured, that's a good way for a flying machine to turn. If they made it work, that's God's plan, then maybe we should try it too. And so this leaning into a turn was like a bird or a person riding a bicycle. It's funny to me. You see this old black and white footage, these contraptions of flapping wings. You know what I'm talking about?
Yeah, the ones where they pull and it flaps.
Exactly. And so others had tried to emulate birds, at least in the flapping aspect, but not in the more focused kind of control and turning aspect. So Wilbur and Orville apparently spent a lot of time, tell me if you concur, that just brainstorming on how to achieve the same effect of bird wings with a man-made wing, and noticing that birds change the angle of the ends of their wings to roll left and right. They make one wing go up and one wing go down, and that was the same type of thing that Orville and Wilbur were trying to achieve. And that's wing warping, which you mentioned before, which is just like it sounds. And it's kind of funny. They discovered how to do it with a man-made almost by accident when Wilbur was idly twisting a long inner tube box at the bicycle shop, like true Reese's peanut butter cup moment, right? And you covered this, as I said a little bit earlier, but wing warping, just like it sounds, with lines or cables, they apply torque or twist the wings one side slightly up, one side slightly down, and it's just like a stunt kite. Do you ever fly stunt kites?
I have not, but
it's a lot of fun. Yeah, I mean, and it really works. I mean, torquing the wings. I tell you, one of my fondest memories of going down side street here, but being a camp counselor at Camp Seagull was flying stunt kites, and would send the kids out into the field, and then try and pop them doing a dive bombing action, and they loved it. Nobody got hurt. I mean, the only danger was sometimes they'd run into each other because they were all looking up.
Right. They're trying to avoid
the dive bomber.
James attacking them with a kite.
Exactly. But it truly, that wing warping idea obviously truly works, and it can be reproduced with a stunt kite.
That's awesome.
Indeed.
Well, the Wright brothers didn't need to take on any debt in their endeavors because they had been successful in their bicycle shop. But if you had a small business or you had a medium-sized business and you wanted to take it to the next level, you'd probably call our friends at South State Bank. Banking with South State is a throwback to the days when you actually knew your banker, before call centers, automated phone systems, and out-of-state decision makers turned banking into an impersonal transaction. The person you know and trust is empowered to make decisions locally with an understanding of you, your business, and your goals. South State is committed to building long-term relationships through responsive, personalized service that makes banking easier. If you have screamed "representative" at the top of your voice at your bank's automated 1-800 number too many times, you really need to consider South State Bank. You can check out how South State has you covered from personal banking and mortgages to commercial and SBA loans to wealth management at www.southstatebank.com. Or, even better, to prove our point, speak to a banker directly at 404-444-0324. That's 404-444-0324.
We truly appreciate your support.
And now I want to get into the butterfly flapping its wings moment of the history of modern aviation.
We should have a little bell where we ring that each time.
I hate to even use it, but this really is one of those things that is so bizarre, you couldn't make it up.
Yeah.
But Wilbur Wright has this run-in, more of a violent assault when he's in high school, and it changes the trajectory of his life. And this gives us an opportunity to back up a little bit and talk about the Wright brothers' childhood. Born April 16th, 1867, near Millville, Indiana, Wilbur was the third of 7 children born to the Wrights. Orville was his younger brother. They spent much of their youth moving frequently due to their father's work as a bishop in the Church of the United Brethren. Now, this is interesting to me. Wilbur was a star athlete. When you read about him later, you don't think of him as athletic. You think of him as much, much more academic. But he was a star in football, in skating, and gymnastics. Also an outstanding student. His last full year of high school, that's going to be important in a minute, he was an A student in everything: algebra, botany, chemistry, English composition, geography, geometry, and Latin. Had his sights set on Yale Divinity School. Of course, his father was a bishop.
Right.
So it made a certain amount of sense. Now, his younger brother, Orville, is a bit more mischievous and was even expelled from school when he was a young boy for just a pattern of pranks and bad behavior.
Does that hit home at all?
It really does. So it wasn't one thing. He was just a mischievous kid. And I want to add here a couple of asides about their childhood, because there is one really important development.
Yeah, I thought this was kind of neat. When they lived in Cedar Rapids, Iowa, their father brought home a toy helicopter, or I guess it was looked like a top. Maybe.
Right.
You just twist it, that kind of thing. And
had a little propeller and a rubber band.
But that's probably about it, right? Then it was based on an invention of this French aeronautical pioneer, Alphonse Pernod. And later, the brothers said that this was what originally sparked their interest in flying. This little toy. Isn't that cool?
It's crazy. So they played with it until it broke.
Is that right?
And then when it broke, they started building their own.
Oh, no kidding.
And Catherine, their sister, talks about the fact that their mother would never throw their broken toys. Like, they would have all of these attempts to make these things. And instead of throwing them away and getting upset, she would put them back on the shelf because she was so impressed with their ingenuity and how they were trying to copy this toy that their father had bought that they had played with, and it broke.
Very cool.
The second thing I think is fascinating is that their home, finally in Dayton, Ohio, eventually, 7 Hawthorne Street, filled with books. Their father, the bishop, avid reader. One of the great stories in my mind is that he had the book of the great agnostic Robert Ingersoll, which incredibly he made the brothers read. Huh. And after they read it, their interest in religion waned.
Oh, really?
Yeah. And the father didn't mind.
Okay.
He thought that mental acuity was important.
Right.
And Wilbur Wright later said, quote, "The greatest thing in our favor was growing up in a family where there was always encouragement to intellectual curiosity," end quote.
That's cool.
And I think that's fascinating.
Indeed.
And I'll add here, there are many articles and observations that point to the fact that Wilbur kind of lived in his own world. He was very intelligent, measured, precise. Orville was more outgoing. And later the French press would say that Wilbur was obsessed with flying. And then there was an author, Tara Staley, who in her book Claiming the Sky speculated he may have even been on the autism spectrum.
Well, both of them were lifelong bachelors.
That's crazy.
Yeah, Wilbur said, he's quoted as saying he did not have time for a wife and an airplane, close quote. And, I just made me think, it's a given, of course, that women are smarter than men. And
absolutely.
You think if they had wives that they'd let them go up and do all that stunt flying?
Oh, absolutely not.
Yeah.
You would have gotten back to the bicycle shop, stopped these month-long expeditions to the Outer Banks.
Tails between their legs. You think Lori and Katie would let us go up flying in some contraption that we cobbled together in the garage with ladies' underwear and bed sheets and balsa wood?
Probably not.
Probably not.
Probably not. When we're in our 60s, maybe. Everything in Wilbur's life came undone after an incident in his neighborhood growing up. Years later, his father would write that a neighborhood bully named Oliver Crook Haw,
I guess.
Oliver Crook Haw, hit Wilbur in the face with a hockey stick,
Awful.
shattering his jaw and knocking out most of his upper front teeth. Wilbur's had to be fitted with false upper teeth,
Jeez.
began suffering serious digestive complications, heart palpitations,
Terrible.
and fell into a depression.
Yeah.
And unfortunately, this injury, causes him to withdraw from studies, and he abandons his plans to attend Yale. In fact, he spends 3 years at home.
Just inside the house.
Just inside the house. Just absolutely withdraws from society. At the same time, his mother, Susan Catherine Corner Wright, was suffering from tuberculosis, and he did take care of his mother in her final days
during that time.
But this really upended Wilbur's trajectory.
Yeah.
But one of the things that happens is that he dives into his father's books and starts reading on mechanics and science. He becomes very interested in that famous German glider enthusiast I mentioned earlier, Otto Lilienthal, who is known as the Flying Man. And when he dies, it really sets a spark in Wilbur's brain.
Yeah.
He had a couple of successful, these were bi-wing things I told you. He would kind of hang below them.
Okay.
And he gets up, and when he dies, he gets up about 50 feet into the air, and then the glider just crashes to the ground, and he did not survive. But he's quoted as saying, "It must not remain our desire only to acquire the art of the bird. It is our duty not to rest until we have attained the perfect scientific conception of the problem of flight."
The flying problem. He knew it could be done. Sounds like he knew it could be done.
And Wilbur, at the same time, was looking at his experiments. There were lots of photos.
Picked up the mantle.
Picked it up. So it just so happens that his father's book collection was an English translation of a famous old volume written by a French physician named Etienne Jules Mary called Animal Mechanism, which Wilbur Wright read at least twice. Also studied J. Bell Pettigrew's Animal Locomotion, which you had sort of talked about.
Sure.
And he stressed the way of an eagle in the air must, of necessity, remain a mystery until the structure of the wings are understood.
Interesting.
Wright takes that to heart. Wilbur Wright really kind of fixates on that.
Yeah.
But back to the
can we go back to that for a minute? Yeah.
This is a fascinating, this is the butterfly flapping its wings.
The one who knocked Wilbur's teeth out.
Right.
With the hockey stick. Yeah, and changed the trajectory of his life.
Changed the trajectory of modern aviation, really.
So we're talking about Oliver Crook Haw, later Dr. Oliver Crook Haw.
He was a doctor.
He became a doctor. He sure did. And he went from a hockey stick wielding neighborhood bully to a serial killer doctor.
Crazy.
Yeah, exactly. Bona fide, real deal serial killer.
Yeah.
Yeah, and a doctor. And he was apparently convicted of murdering his father and his mother and his brother, then burned the house down to try and conceal the evidence. Apparently he was addicted to morphine.
Yeah, he had
cocaine.
like some terrible teeth problems, and they would give him cocaine.
Is that right?
To try to soothe his pain.
Yeah.
He got addicted to drugs.
Yeah, and bad things. He was accused of killing or strangling several women in Cincinnati, and also an Ohio woman who died under suspicious circumstances. At least 16 murders.
16 murders.
All total,
But we don't know. I mean, the 16 that we know of.
Right.
And didn't he have like this Dr. Jekyll and Mr. Hyde
Absolutely.
thing where he was trying to take a drug to make himself into a monster or something?
It is kind of the American Dr. Jekyll and Mr. Hyde story. He claimed that he had this drug. He was on the verge of discovering this way to improve humanity for all time. And as I said, he's addicted to cocaine and morphine, and it turned him into a monster. Some contended that it was just bad doctoring. That killed these folks, presumably not the strangulation victims.
Yes.
But
I'd read
others, so crazy, right?
That it was almost like he had this mercy thing where he would put people out of their misery.
You read that too?
Yeah.
Okay.
But
not the strangulation.
No.
Okay.
When you kill your mother and father and set your house on fire.
Any medical technique that would involve, don't do drugs, Danny.
Don't do drugs. As happens, we got through an entire episode. We didn't even get to Kitty Hawk.
Yeah.
So we're going to have to leave that for the next episode. We'll also talk about the beekeeper who breaks the story of the first flying machine
when no one else would.
Yeah,
including
James Cox.
Yeah,
the future of the governor of Ohio of Cox Communications.
Exactly. And also, we'll touch on whether it was actually a man in Georgia who flew.
I know.
If we're talking about control, who had controlled flight in 1874. Was
James.
he the first in flight in North
James,
Georgia.
I love it. I absolutely love it. So we'll be back in 2 weeks with episode 2. Please leave a comment. Let us know whether you believe the Wrights were really the first in flight. Do you believe this dude from Georgia may have been the first? We'll get to all that in the next episode and more.
Thanks so much for listening. This is History for Cocktail Parties with hack historians Thornton Kennedy and James Ottley.